A prolonged stay in a nursing home can be very expensive, and for some, it could wipe out their retirement savings. Consider this. For a couple age 70 who incurs expenses for long-term care, their wealth decreased by 21% over a 9-year period. It's a challenge for all of us. Mike Cease joins me to break this down next. Hello, welcome back to Wealth Wednesday, our bi-weekly show to help you plan for something better in your life. You can catch us on our YouTube channel. That's at Commonwealth Financial. And you can also find us on the web at cfswv.com. Today, my guest is Mike Cease. He is a certified financial planner practitioner in our Parkersburg office. He's been doing this for a couple days, as have I. All of our stats that we're going to talk about today are coming from Morningstar, and we're going to provide links to their articles here on our website. So, Mike, you and I have 28 years in this business, and we've experienced either clients or family members go through this. In fact, I'm dealing with a couple of family members experiencing this right now. What makes this so concerning is the overall cost.
Yeah, these are some useful stats from Morningstar. All of these stats will be from Morningstar that we're providing today. The median cost in the U.S. for a nursing home stay today is about $108,000 or roughly about $8,800 per month, which is kind of scary. The median cost in the U.S. for home health aid, if you just look at 44 hours per week and you do that times 52 weeks a year, that's $61,000 plus a year. The average cost in the U.S. for assisted living is about $54,000. And there's also, when we were young, we would take our kids to daycare. Well, there's adult daycare too. So at 5 days per week, that comes up to $20,280 for adult daycare. This is today's cost. So inflating those, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years into the future, and those numbers get really scary when you look at it. So it's something that needs to be addressed and looked at, and it's something that will affect a lot of people out there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of confusion about who pays for this. And many people think that Medicare pays for long-term care services, and there are some benefits, but it's very specific circumstances. That system's not really designed to do that. Only about 18.2% of long-term care services are paid by Medicare, and that was back in 2020. So for Medicare, you have to understand, for them to pay, you have to meet some very specific criteria. You have to go to a facility directly from a hospital. It has to be medically necessary. You have to show signs of continuous improvement. And here's the real kicker. Medicare at max will pay for 100 days of long-term care type services. And then you're on your own. You have to find other ways to do that. And Mike, for many people, this means turning to use their own assets until they qualify for Medicaid, which is a very different circumstance. Can you explain?
Yeah, so for Medicaid, 13.5% of long-term care services today were paid out of pocket by consumers. So they're having to dig into their own savings to do that. Medicaid is a government-funded health care program for people who really have very little assets, or some people would say really don't have anything. So 62% of nursing home residents are covered by Medicaid. So a large majority do really have nothing, and the government steps in to help pay for them. And then 21% of Medicaid funding in this country went to pay for long-term care expenses in 2019, which is the most recent data available. The other things that we always want to talk about is qualifying for Medicaid means you have to spend down your assets to certain levels and meet other income requirements. Those are too long to list because they vary state by state. And these are a lot lower than you may be aware of. So that's something you really need to have serious conversations with an advisor or someone who specializes in this area, because otherwise you will get a very big surprise in the future.
Yeah, and there's attorneys who basically specialize in helping people plan for Medicaid as a whole. There's some challenging statistics when it comes to this long-term care thing, and it's sometimes people like to think of it as a flip of the coin. Well, here's some stats that Morningstar shared with us. 76% of the people who are 65 today will spend less than $50,000 on long-term care costs. Another 11% will spend somewhere between $50,000 and $150,000. So not everybody's going to have that worst case scenario. And when we look at those worst case scenarios, and that's those times when people are facing a multi-year stay, that could be $300,000 or more. But you can't insure this, but the costs are just very prohibitive for some people, and sticker shock is a major thing for those. A 55-year-old male today with $165,000 pool of benefits with an inflation rider, and those inflation riders are key. Average cost of that's about $2,200. And for a female in the same situation, you're talking about an average cost of $3,700 per year. The longer you wait, the more you're going to pay in that. And another interesting stat to consider with this, 1/3 of the applicants between 65 and 69 were declined for coverage because their health had progressed to a point where they just wouldn't be underwritten. So it's a tough decision for people to make when they're in their 50s, and they think that, it's not going to happen to me, especially when you look at those stats. Now, Mike, we could let this episode get just totally hours long if we wanted to, but there are two big questions as you've been working with clients. One, how concerned are they about this? And two, how willing are they to do something about it?
So most of the clients that I personally work with are getting close to retirement or have retired. And so this is something that, in the beginning when they're trying to prepare for retirement, it's all about accumulating assets. So now we're getting to the point is how do we use those assets? And so it's a conversation we have with every client that comes here. And they're concerned about it. But then when you get down to what do we do about it, that's where there's always that little roadblock or they have some difficulty with it. And so everyone's willing to talk about it, but there's only a small percentage that are actually willing to do something about it. And the ones that really want to do something about it are the ones who've had experience with a family member, a parent, or a sibling. And so there's lots of things you can do. There's lots of different options you have available. The biggest thing that I would encourage everyone is ask questions, find out what all your options are, because in reality, it's going to affect roughly 2 out of every 4 people going forward in some way, shape, or form. And one of the things I find interesting is the average stay in some type of facility for a male is a little under 2.5 years. And for a female, it's a little over 3.5 years. So it will have impact on your financial situation. So I strongly encourage you to talk to someone about it.
Yeah, and it's, when you stop and think about, inflation rates of these things, it's easy to think about when you see the CPI number of 2 or 3%. My expectation is for long-term care costs to inflate at a much faster, much higher rate because, one, we're in a surge of people that are going to be needing those services more and more, and there's just not as many facilities. So it's going to push the demand higher and higher for that. Mike, thank you for joining me today. If you have questions, would like to talk about this with a financial advisor near you, please check us out on the web. That's cfswv.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.